playing some PS4. What are you playing, dude? If I may be so bold as to attribute you the aspect of dude. I don't know what I'm doing. I came home, I set this chat up. Playing, dude? If I may be so bold. And now I'm hearing my own voice. Of dude. So let's do that. Okay. Anyhow, I came home, set this up, and then I started reading the internet, and then I lost what I was going to talk about. I had something to talk about. I was going to go back through and talk about the last month where I hosted, or I was instrumental in the process. I didn't do all the work, but I was instrumental in the process of meeting a bunch of people in Seattle and in Olympia and in Portland. And I met a lot of cool and interesting people, and thinking about doing another one in a week and a half or so in maybe Tacoma or in Olympia. And I never actually processed what happened at those 3 events in SUMA, but basically the last one, which was the meeting where we met with Prince of Queens, who I will be on his Gaytriarchy live stream show. And for whatever reason, tomorrow night at 8 p.m., I guess you should join us if you want to witness me attempt to talk to somebody else in real live YouTube hangout fashion. I don't know how that's going to work out or not. But he was there. He set up the event with this other guy that he knew. And we had this huge old house, and there was like 30 or 40 people there. It was like a large turnout. And there's this guy there, I don't know if I should say his name or not, but there's this other guy who's got like a lot of YouTube following, and he lives in town right now and stuff. And I got to talk to him about the YouTube business, and his work ethic is freaking phenomenal. He produces like a video a day. He's like one of those video days guys. And he talks about, you know, contemporary politics on YouTube. And I've been thinking about what I want to be producing for YouTube. And so I'll get to that in a bit. But anyways, we all came together and we just started talking. And Prince of Queens gave like an opening statement about why he doesn't show his face on his channel. And then I kind of gave like this second opening statement about the need for us to enter into face-to-face communication with one another and not like just get out on these weird conspiracy tangents or these othering tangents where we ascribe to swaths of people qualities that are only accurate when you look at swaths of people, but completely break down when you look at individual people. And the only way to do that is to, is to meet each other face to face and practice the art of listening. To practice the art of listening is to, I believe, is to proceed toward a commons, to proceed in order to build a space where everybody can begin working on figuring out the problems of the world and of each other and of their togetherness. There needs to be listeners more than there needs to be speakers. Everybody needs to have more points in the listening than in the speaking, though actually you kind of end up maxing out speaking if you're into speaking, because then you see that you have a bunch of power. So the whole game gets all wicked and stuff, and we can never expect people to not take advantage of any given system. So I'm not being a utopist, I don't think, but I do think that part of the foundation of great discourse, not just productive discourse and not just not toxic discourse, but great discourse, like the bedrock of that is the ability to really consider the other's position. And you can't consider when you're flapping your lips, which is funny because that's all I do is flap my lips. So I've been thinking about that. I'm going to go back into this chat zone, see how you guys are doing over here. I didn't get point creation. You're playing PS4 and Survival Evolved. All I know about that Survival Evolved game is that there's a triangle with blue and green and red and a dinosaur, and then like somebody with flowing hair who I think is a woman on the dinosaur and with a laser gun or something. That's all I know about that game. And that it goes on sale quite often on Steam, and I never end up picking it up because I think it's a multiplayer game, but I might be completely wrong about that. I'm not terribly big into multiplayer games, except for this kind, the kind that's built out of text and words. Myco Piscarino, I Always pause at your name. Someday, maybe out loud, you can say that into a recording device so I can hear it, because then I'll know how to speak it. But you're watching baseball and relaxation and thought. I love that. That's a great pairing. Like if you were designing an evening's repast, like I mean, if you were making a menu of something to do during the night, that's a great combination. Baseball, relaxation, and thought. Spaceship battle. I don't know what this bear symbol means. I do not know what this bear symbol means. If anybody in the comment section can explain to me what this bear symbol means, and I think we're a small enough group, I don't want to see 34 people. So I think we can trust each other right here. There's only 34 of us. We can't all be bots, right? And even if there's 3 bots, we got them covered. So somebody in good faith, tell me what a bear is. And if I get trolled, I get trolled. I'll just roll with that. I'll just roll with that. I'm glad you're fortunate, Michael. Thomas in Payne writes, I appreciated your take on the walkaway bot issue, and I am grateful no evergreen coverage. I had reached peak evergreen. Oh, do we need to talk about evergreen? I need a break from evergreen. Some people are like, stop talking about evergreen. And some people are like, why are you not talking about evergreen? I'm like, okay, listen, I just want to make this documentary. And in order for me to do this documentary in the way that I want to do the documentary, and I'm imagining some sort of Norman Mailer, like just getting in and getting people's stories, just getting a collection of different viewpoints on what happened. And I will provide the facts, and then I'll fill that in with people's accounts. And so as I start to construct that, I need to, there's a few major pieces that I need to wait on. And as I'm waiting on it, I'm reconsidering how I'm going to frame the major characters, especially the characters in the evergreen drama that I have participated in interpreting as bad actors. Like I've been jiggering with that prejudice that I've formed now. I've made a conclusion about George Bridges, Naima Lowe, and the protesting students. I made a conclusion. I'm trying to separate myself from that in order to bring a broader window into the events that happened and into how people were thinking about what they were doing and stuff. And I think basically the story, when it goes down into that level, it gets once you start suspending your judgment on what's going on, multiple things happen. One, you start actually feeling empathy for people that you had judged. You start feeling empathy, and so that slows you down. You start to consider, well, like what was their frame of mind? Like, let's look at the evidence. Like, if I could talk to them now, I would, but I probably burn some bridges. But I can still figure out how to cast them in the best, or the not the best light, like justifying them. That's not what I'm saying. I don't want to justify anybody. I don't want to do any of the judging. I want to give as much data as possible, and the data is all tied together. It's so freaking weird. All these different people, just characters, right? When we look at a story, when people look at the evergreen story, they see a bunch of characters, and I've been playing with those characters and shuffling them around, filling them out and stuff. But that character is actually a person, and I don't know how you're supposed to do that, but I believe in the way of interacting with the story that's more along the line of a novel, like Tom Wolfe, who did that story about Kesey, the electric Kool-Aid acid test, which I highly recommend you read. It's a trippin' of a trip book, and the way that he rendered the different actual people in there, he spiced it up with literature. Like he added poetry, he added flow, he added story, he added framework, and he said everything along with plot. But I felt like I was close to those people in there, and you see their mistakes and you see their strengths and stuff. And ultimately, I guess at root, anybody who does make a mistake, I would rather cast them in a tragic light. I guess that's like, if I have any motive on how I'm going to cast it, I would like to cast everybody in a tragic light. And by that I mean people made tough decisions, and everybody had to pay something. And some people came out ahead, but everybody had to pay something. Everybody had to pay in that situation. And I think that's a way of anchoring sympathy in the story. Anyways, that's a lot of ramble. So that's what I think about the evergreen thing. So I'm doing a lot of processing. Loyal opposition. Hey, dude. Loyal opposition. I have to figure out what a bear means, but hold on. The loyal opposition, I don't know. It's pretty fun laughing at George Bridges. I know, it's so fun. Unless they're asking if you're a hairy gay man. I know that definition of a bear, but I don't think that's what people think of me when they ask if I'm a bear. Bears are a type of animal, real big and dangerous. Organic dinosaur, thanks for your contribution to widening my understanding of this emoji bear. Spaceship Battle. Bears are red-pilled libertarians. Interesting. So it's not tied to a single individual. It's not like I support, Tom Hardy and wanting him to have more lines in the next rumored Mad Max, but it's just a bunch of people that are under the banner of red-pilled libertarians, not a cult. That makes me think of something, if that's correct. If the symbol, the emoji symbol of a bear is just a bunch of red-pilled libertarians, hashtag not a cult. I've been thinking about this, and there was an interview I did with Katie Herzog that we didn't end up deciding to publish. So we did 2 interviews, and I'm sorry about the last interview I did with her. I did not introduce her, and I've changed my ways on introducing my guests. That was very valuable feedback for me to get. But in the first one that we didn't publish interview between me and Katie Herzog, who is... You're like, who is it? Katie Herzog. Let me introduce you. She's a very, very prolific writer up in Seattle, and she works for The Stranger, which is a weekly. And we spoke about how she gets a lot of flack for the articles she writes, and she has all these identities that align her, like, really strongly with the left and with Democrats and stuff, and she's had a lot of blowback from writing certain articles where you're not supposed to talk about these certain issues and stuff, and she received a lot of it seemed to me that she was explaining that she had been exiled from her ideology, or the camp. She kind of was exiled from the camp. So on that note, we started talking about, like, what do we do with all these ideological homeless people? There's all these homeless people that are walking around with these, like, these cardboard ideologies, just stuff that, like, some of it's firm, maybe some of it's armor. Everybody's got, like, some armor, but like, they're basically camping, or at least they're feeling that they're not a part of the group, right? So this walk away thing, what I thought was really interesting about it, that it was giving voice to. Now, let's put aside all that bot stuff, but actually looking at what it's giving voice to on a narrative level, on a novel level. I just saw this big yellow thing. Let me finish my sentence before I look at that yellow thing. And I think I lost the thought. I freaking lost the thought because Joe Dirt sent me $10. Comfy little channel and stream. Hey, buddy. Look for Vernaculus and Delicium. Similar content, enjoying your stuff since the longer videos about Evergreen. Thank you very much. I am going to screenshot that so I can look up these channels, because everybody's got such weird names. Everybody's got such weird names. I was talking about the ideologically homeless right now, and what the walkaway movement was giving voice to was just people, just normal people saying, I thought I was over here, but that place doesn't want me, or, like, I don't feel like I fit in over there. And I think a lot of people don't fit in a lot of different places. So what do you do with that mass of humanity, that centrist population? How can you give them a label or attempt to stand under that they won't fit in underneath all over again? Because I think most of us don't fit in anywhere, and some of us don't want to compromise in order to fit in. Or there's certain things that we can't get around that force us to not fit in. But I think that insofar as we do have the capacity, again, I'm sorry I'm so freaking moral, but I think once we have the capacity to start listening to each other, I think we'll start feeling affinity, not just empathy, but affinity with each other. I think it's one thing to have empathy, right? But it's another thing to figure out what it is about that other person that you can have affinity with. And affinity is like empathy, but it's friendship, and it generates something. It can generate action, whatever that thing called action is, and not any. And that's the thing. That's the problem with these movements on a freaking political sphere. Like, you stop focusing on what every person is, and we all have to kind of get all gray and mushy and start to fit in these weird categories and stuff. It's just weird. It's just weird. It's just weird. Anyhow, back to the comment section. La Patrio La Tumba. I'm approved on the Bear Communist. Wait, you're approved on the Bear Communist community. Okay. You're approved with the community. The Bears are Owen Benjamin's crew. Good people, but we need a name. I vote for big ass voices. Okay, so that's what I thought the bear meant, is that it had something to do with Owen Benjamin. So that's what I thought. But if it's a part of this red pill libertarian thing, like that's what I was riffing on. But I also heard that was under a person. It was under a person. Genetic flotsam. Not everyone has a pedigree wasp name. Peacock, like Benjamin Boyce. That's great. I don't know if you're taking a jab at me or throwing a juicy mango for me to catch, but I caught it and I bit it and that was juicy. Thanks, Genetic Flotsam. Amanda Garcia Hodgson, I listen to you while I run errands with my toddler. Oh, Amanda, I hope your toddler's doing great. I haven't had a toddler in my life in a while, and my feelings go out for you, both of joy and patience, as you navigate through this tempestuous sea of somebody learning to grip with their own self-determination and responsibility. It's a wonderful process. I've witnessed many people go through that. Little people, and they become bigger and bigger people. I don't know what happens to people when they get big. A lot of weird things start happening when people get big. So I kind of lose the plot with people that are big usually. But children, I can't understand because they're not big yet. Kind of a lot simpler. That's where my affinities lie. Dr. Johnny A-hole, Benjamin Boyce. Comicsgate is so messed up. I know. It's a huge deal amongst nerd culture. You should research it. I have been following the Comicsgate stuff. I don't want to enter into something that I won't know the full picture of, and that's already like it's a big mess. It's a big mess, and I haven't found something where I feel like I could start talking about it, but I have been following it, and I think it's interesting. I think actually what people are actually doing with it right now is pretty good. And I think the one of the things that I could have mentioned when I talked about the walk away movement, and I think I mentioned that there's certain patterns of discourse that are being replicated with this walk away movement that were replicated or that were generated or that certain behaviors were enacted during the Gamergate thing. Like when this movement, when this so-called viral movement starts to rise, then the media personalities start to play all these games with it. And there's different tools that they have, developed in order to, cut apart or defeat this, this movement and stuff. And one of the ways to do it is calling them harassers. That's one way. And painting that story because that's such a good hook. But another way to do it is just call them bots or just to delegitimize their opponents. And it's interesting. I saw, and I think I see something similar in the Comic Gates thing. Like it's just certain behaviors, and they're actually kind of boring once you see the pattern of like the people in power, people who have somehow narrated or have to wrestle out loud in public with people who don't want them to have the narrative, right, and have this other narrative of what's going on. It's interesting on that level, but I think there's a lot of repeated back and forth on that, and I think it would behoove us and all of us like gaining a better understanding of media and thinking through things to see different behaviors, just certain statements and turns that people use in order to derail the conversation or to cover up the useful information, let's say. What's the useful information? And that's why I stuck my camp with the walk away movement, not necessarily for any political reason. I think there's a whole discussion about the actual walk away movement. I didn't enter into that. What I was interpreting was just the capacity for true information to be generated and accessed one-to-one, but just by this random sample and stuff like that. I ramble and I stop rambling and I look at this list of rambles over here. Binger, non-binaries. Death by Slut. Thomas and Payne. Love Nuance Bros content too. Is that a guy? Nuance Bro? I'm going to take a screenshot of that. Nuance Bro. Nuance Bro. Okay. Thomas and Payne. Possible names would be great fun. Radical centrists without pious platitudes. You paid me to make up an alliteration, and I raise my glass to your alliteration, and I drink it because now I can afford another one. Thank you, Tom. Nope. I just did that on live. I just did that on the live stream. Oh, and Benjamin Boyce, Ben Shapiro. The Ben triple threat to support common sense. All right, I need to talk about one more thing, and then I should get back to fixing dinner for the lady who has been hosting so many travelers in our little tiny cabin. She's wonderful. She's amazing. I'm going to be going. I don't know what else I have to talk about. I should keep on talking, though, right? Dr. Johnny Asshole, Benjamin A. Boyce, no, dude, they are forcing the comic pros out. Okay, back to Comicsgate. But the comic book pros turned it around on the SJWs and raised. Yeah, okay, yeah, that was the cool thing. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Dr. Johnny A-hole. For all those people who are just tuning in randomly about this Comicsgate thing, there was a bunch of like contentious like social justice stuff. I'm really truncating it. I really don't know what I'm talking about. There's this social justice narrative, and the social justice narrative wasn't selling a lot of comic books. And then these other comic book creators, they wanted to create comic books that people would want, and then they raised a bunch of money, like almost $1 million right now. So it's pretty cool that the consumer is making a choice, and it's showing that people are actually getting wise to these different techniques of people trying to control the narratives. Like, you know what, even if every single individual person gets to control the narrative, and they get to express that through their wallet now, like directly. Like the whole gatekeeper process is really topsy-turvy. That means that any radical group can actually pool its money together to have an effect in the world. They can actually they can support the narrative that they want. So it's interesting, and hopefully like there's a balance in there, you know, because I can see a bunch of different extremist groups taking advantage of that. But I think they will eventually be outnumbered by just normal people, because by definition, they're more normal people than extremist people. Like our idea of normal is the average. There's more average people of the extreme people. And so the only thing the average person needs to do is just to understand that they have a directorial or dictatorial stake in what's going on, insofar as they raise some capital and then they plunk their capital into the mix and have that go along and stuff. So you can have, with the Comicsgate stuff, you can have things turn around in a novel fashion. So I do, thanks Johnny Asshole for A-hole for pointing that out. Oh, should I say smash the like button? Smash that like button. I can't even pronounce it. Smash that like button. Subscribe. Should I do more of that kind of stuff? Smash the like button. Hit subscribe. I try to avoid that stuff because when it comes out, I can never do it artfully. So I just say feed the kitty, because the kitties are the real project, right? I'm trying to like emblazon the kitties in your brains, like all this social justice, anti-social justice, this political narrative stuff. That's just a ploy. What I'm trying to implant in your brain is this ideal cat. I'm trying to summon from your imagination an ideal cat. And so when I turn into a ghost, I can latch onto your brain, and you guys will all call yourselves kitties, not bears. No, but kitties. There will be a very special tuxedo cat emoji that will signify your allegiance to the hence deceased Boyce as I travel on my way. And, you know, like a spider, a Google spider, go through your brains wherever that kitty has touched you, and elicit more astral pleasures in my dome of infinite space. I am going off the rail here. Exactly. A platonic ideal of the cat. Yeah, I know, Himdall. Well, my cat can live with your cat. I will show you. I will show you. Norman Mailer-esque documentary style requires explanation. That's a good point, Thomas. Yeah, he does. Maybe I should read that book again. The one about the I can't think of the name right now. It has a weird name, but it's about some guy in Utah, I believe, who was a prisoner, and he gets out of jail, and then he ends up doing something terrible. But it's really strong. It was a really strong book. Oh, thanks, Battleship, for smushing that like button. Platy cats. You guys like my whole like pleasure dome of infinite space-time out in the astral futures and stuff? Like, that's the stuff that I really want to talk about too. I just want to talk about nonsense and stuff, but nobody wants to listen to a bunch of nonsense unless you're two. That's the thing. I need to hire a bunch of people to like plop their 2-year-olds in front of my camera so I can just like screen them through a random assortment of adjectives, verbs, and little funky modifier things like likely and absolutely and stuff like that. Stuff you're like, oh, what do you mean by that? But then your brain grows bigger because now you have this little tool and stuff. I think I was going to go off a little bit about the tricks that people play in the debate zone of social media. And one of the patterns that I see is that people are really fond of fallacies, right? People are fond of having the ability to name a fallacy. And I think that it's important to understand a fallacy, but there's also an etiquette that people don't really talk about what to do when you know the fallacy. And what I've seen a lot is that there's these fallacies. The latest fallacy is called whataboutism. I still don't really understand whataboutism, and I'm not going to look it up because it's just an example, but there's this fallacy going around where you're not supposed to do whataboutism, right? I'm reading it, I'm like, I never heard this before, and I just had this feeling. This is an intuition. This is just my feeling, and I'm totally prejudiced. There's some academic out there who wants to like have some sort of gambit in the way that people are talking, right? Because somebody who makes up new words, they're usually an academic, or at least they're academically leading. Like if you spend your time like making up new words, there's something going on in your brain that like that's really important to you. And I think those people gravitate to reading more words, right? Hence academic. So some academic was like typing away, here's my keyboard, and they're like, whataboutism? I see this pattern in discourse, and I think it's a fallacy. So let's go and name this fallacy. So this academic person, they come up with this word called whataboutism. It's like, okay, look at this pattern in discourse. What, like people are going around saying, what about this? What about that? And they derail the conversation. And it's a fallacy. It doesn't actually advance the argument. So then other people are like, oh yeah, whataboutism? People really shouldn't use whataboutism, right? This is just an example. And then they go around, they start writing articles about how whataboutism is wrong. And there was an article that I read about how whataboutism is wrong. And it didn't say anything other than when people do this, it's not okay. But it seemed like she was so ideologically set, the person who was writing this, that she kind of, I felt that she's like, it's not okay when other people do it, but I'm going to do it at the same time. It seemed like she was doing it and telling other people not to do it at the same time. So my basic point is that now there's this act of whataboutism, right? When you go and you say, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? And you derail the conversation. But now there's this other way of derailing discourse that's called whataboutism, where now people on Twitter can just say, well, you're just doing whataboutism. You're just doing whataboutism. It's the same thing as like, you're just being defensive. You're just being defensive. That was a psychological term, and now it's just like this tool to shut other people up. Like privilege. Privilege, it does have meaning. It does have use. It's a word. It's a tool. It can generate understanding of the environment, but people take it out of context and then they just start beating other people over the head with it. Right? This little wrench becomes a cudgel. Right? And so that's another thing that I don't really know how to describe. Like, so we have all these fallacies, like the straw man fallacy, and that's a way to derail the conversation, but that's just fluffing up the conversation, right? Unless you call it out, you leave it alone. If somebody enacts that way, the conversation's dead. But going around and like accusing people of straw man is another way of just like, it's another fallacy. It's the fallacious fallacy. It's the phallical fallacy. I don't know what it is, but it's like something, it's like this fallacy that has to do with fallacies that I just wanted to point out. I don't know where I put that. So I put it in this little weird eddy of Benjamin speak. To go back to what you guys are talking about, Greg Wolf, sea lioning isn't a fallacy, I don't think. Sea lioning, is that an actual thing, Greg Wolf? Genetic flotsam. Sometimes whataboutism just puts things in perspective. Like you're not complaining about the real problem. Death by sloth. Whataboutism is more an attempt to deflect moral criticism from one's tribe by pointing out similar moral failings in the other's tribe. So just with what genetic flotsam said and what death by sloth said right now at 7 p.m., I don't know how out of sync I'm in with like the future of this being published, but those are two different ways of thinking about whataboutism. One person's kind of defending it. Death by sloth is saying this is how it's useful to see how people are attempting to deflect moral criticism from their tribe by pointing out similar. So, well, what about your tribe, right? And which is a useful way of seeing that for yourself. I just wonder about the people who moralize and use these things. That was my criticism. But Greg Wolf, no. Genetic Flotsam said sometimes whataboutism just puts things in perspective. So that's another thing that's pro about whataboutism. Like, you're widening the topic of discourse. I'm totally going off the rails. So when you say what about this, what about that, you're enlarging the discourse. You're not getting it offline. You're just bringing more information potentially to it. So I don't know what I'm talking about this word, but I talked about the word. Scott Adams has a good take on Walk Away, and it's more insight than the founder of the movement himself. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, come on. Scott Adams, come on. I don't know much about that guy, but he's got some way with thought words, and he does those thought word things. I've seen it. I agree. He has more depth. He added more depth to the conversation. I appreciated what he had to say about that. Even if I probably go back and I wouldn't disagree with him in other things, like, I did appreciate the quality of discourse that he brought to it. Yukon Bear, God, these people need to get a life. I don't know who these people are. Are you talking about me? Because I live in a cabin. What about him? Tukokwe? Oh, Keiko from Wikipedia. Sea lying is a type of trolling or harassment which consists of pursuing people with persistent requests for evidence or repeated questioning. What the hell does a sea lion have to do with that? I've never been asked for facts from a sea lion. Is that like motorboating? What is this? How do people come up with this? Is this like a tactic that sea lion does with information out in the wild, like with the clamshells or something, or amidst each other? I don't know, but I guess that's something. Hey, Tiopiak. Sorry about your name, mispronouncing it. I just wanted to call you out. This is the first time I've seen you in my live stream. Dan Pope's in UK. Good morning. I know, I feel bad. I should do a morning thing so you guys can be in the evening in the UK, but I don't know if I can do this thing first thing in the morning. I mean, I barely make sense after work. Before work, like, what's going to come out of my mouth? Keiko says the term arises from 2014 edition of the webcomic. You know what? Can I tell you guys something? Watch this Keiko girl. Her name is spelled in a way that could be pronounced in a plethora of manners. But Keiko, she lays down the facts. I've been watching her grow. She's gonna do some great stuff. So keep your eyes on her. I'm gonna get her on this show. I'm gonna get her on the show, and we're gonna talk facts. Like butt facts or something like that. We'll call it something cool with like facts or facts. Anyways, the edition of the webcomic Wondermark, where a character expresses a dislike of sea lions and a passing sea lion repeatedly asks the character to explain. Okay, so this whole definition comes from a comic. So I'm not wrong in thinking that sea lioning is an absurd phrase. It comes from a comic, but that's fine because everything comes from memes now. We translate our thoughts into memes, and then we it's like this weird like a meme is like this re-beginning of the Big Bang, right? So all of discourse collapses on this meme, this image with like, however many characters, and then it spawns itself again in response to the meme. That's the like for any given discourse, it expands and it contracts and it explodes, expands and contracts, explodes, expands and contracts, subtracts, whatever. It's the pattern of the universe. That's what we are partaking in right here, right now, you guys, with our word languages. We're just like expanding and contracting and exploding all over each other. It's really messy. It's Dionysian. Draw a sea bear circle in the dirt. You guys are testing each other's purity, aren't there? You know what, loyal opposition? I think we are memes. I mean, we're all aspiring to be memes. Like at the end of your life, like our gravestones, they're going to be memes. I mean, if that hasn't already happened, I think that's going to start happening. Like everybody's going like, this is the meme. This is what I want the world to know about me. Like when it all collapsed down, there was like this kid with like this burnt thing of top ramen that he forgot to put water in, and he's looking off in the distance. That encapsulates my entire life. I think that's going to happen. I think this is the future of how we lay ourselves to rest. Tanacon. Dr. Johnny, I don't know anything about Tanacon. See, I come on these things to talk, but what I do is learn. And I can't do it right now, but I'm going to a girl, and there's a guy. What happened? I don't know. I don't have time to look into this, but there's girls and guys talking about it, and they're having reaction videos, and you guys can't see my screen. So, anyways, death is a meme. Show. Okay. All right. All right, guys. All right. Little toe, you are sea lining all the time. And that's fine. I think it's a virtue to ask for references, but like, I guess you have to balance all things, right? You have to balance, you have to have balance in all things, right? So eventually our technology will be to the point where we'll just like flick each other references. We'll like be talking, oh, can I get it? Yeah, bing. And you're like, whoa, okay, I get it, references. And it'll be like flicking boogers, but it'll be little boogers of information. A little bit like this little, these little numbers like flash out, ping in the eye, and then you'll get the thing. And then you'll go off, you won't be part of the conversation anymore because you'll be involved in the references. But the cool thing is that your device will be recording the conversation, so eventually you can get back to the conversation, but then by that time the person won't be anymore. You can't ask another question. So we're all going to end up infinitely delaying our synchronicity with each other because we're all going to be like awash in this sea of data of information. I should probably do this so you guys can see this, but I don't know who's calling me, so I'm not going to show you that. But like, we're going to be all the information. This is the problem. The information like separates us, and it brings us together and separates us. And we're all fragmented. We're all in each other's little lines. Michael, I want to know what interesting word picture you're talking about. Hey, y'all toilets be talking shit. I feel like I'm watching an early 1990s music video. Low frames. Is it low frames? Sorry about the quality of my live streams, guys. But once we start talking about the technology, then I end up ending. I'm not quite ready to do that. So I do like Benjamin's interesting word usements. I am a useful usementator of the language game. That's all I like to do. Like you know, the game I play to really annoy my friends when I'm really bored and like they're just talking, and then I just like, well, I have to be participant somehow, but I'm bored. And then I just like play like shitty autocorrect, and I just like repeat their words back to them, but like as though like I'm an autocorrect bot, because there's all this interesting wordplay underneath all of our words. But now I'm just talking about technology. The interesting reference, booger thing, interesting word picture. Yeah, you know, we'll be flicking the bean at each other. They're little Google glasses or whatever. Like, bing, 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 bing. Can I get a reference on that? Pause. We're all going to be infinitely paused. Our pause will be paused as well, which is the end game of the Me Too movement. And I agree with that. The pause should be paused as well. I mean, I understand that there's bears out there, and sometimes I feel like a bear too, but I need to pause the pause before they do any mauling, right, on the mamas. The pause are not for mauling mamas, right? Like that's a good thing. So insofar as the Me Too movement, it's about decreasing or increasing the pausing of the pause. That's a good thing. But I know it has nothing to do with these red-pilled libertarian Benjamin Owen fans. But I'm just saying, like, the pause can pause. I'm taking a break. Taking a break. I'm slowing down. I'm looking for somebody to say something. Chris Elliott. He says to Little Toe, don't worry about another decade and everything will be recorded and the phones out there. Humans will die in the end. Recording it for no one, I bet. Yeah. There will be somebody with the last selfie. There will be a last selfie. I mean, if we really want to talk about that, we can admit that to each other. There will be a last selfie. And nobody's going to look at it. That's true. It's inevitable. I mean, not only is the conversation expanding, contracting, and exploding, we are too. Everything that we are. Expanding, contracting, and exploding. And that last selfie, it'll be there. What will you call your videos other than pussies? No, we will propagate our information and live on. We'll just be, we'll be like, there'll be some sort of like i19 processor out there. And it won't ever, well, no, it'll be infinitely upgraded because it'll have the capacity to upgrade itself. And then we'll upload ourselves into that infinite upgrade. But I got to tell you guys now that that's all we're participating in. Insofar as you are participating actively with history, you're participating in an infinitely upgraded program, and it's called culture. And it's just constantly being upgraded, constantly. And then a lot of people think that they can upgrade other people's programs and the cultures and stuff. That's all it is. It's an infinite upgrade. So eventually we're going to get the algorithm that'll just let it itself. And somehow there'll be echoes of us in there. I don't know if we'll be aware of it, but our input will be a part of that infinite upgrade, the ultimate singularity. And then the world will collapse. And there'll be one selfie left. There'll still be one selfie. Well, I'm going to keep that. I'm going to say there will be one selfie. I'm going to stick to that. Big Pete, I still have flip phones, and I don't even care. I love the Luddites, man. Stand strong, Big Pete. Deny the technological process. Interact with the earth. Unmitigated by the LCD pictograms that are being shoveled to and fro across the globe for pennies on the dollar. You really should get one. They're really useful. I'm joking now. Doc Johnny, want to read a book? Want a book to read? Read The Savage Detectives. I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was mean to Juno, and then I saw that he was. Yeah, I know. That was my bad. That was my bad. I have to really watch my words. So I will read that. Savage Detectives. Actually, I'll listen to it because I have an Audible credit. You bet the last selfie is a Kardashian. I think we're all just going to become a Kardashian. Just one big, smooth, pasty Kardashian. And by pasty, I don't mean in skin tone. By pasty, I mean we're just going to be like this excrescence. Just this one molded, like a Kardashian shape will be affixed to this tube filled with human goo. And it'll just excrete one last Kardashian. And it'll take a selfie of itself. And then we'll be perpetuating into the infinite zone of multiple upgradings. All right, I'm going to read this Nietzsche quote, and then I'm going to go off. La Patria o la tumba. Nietzsche said we should live as if time is circular, even though he knew it is not the case. I was thinking about that today. I really was. I was thinking about what Nietzsche called the eternal return. And the proposition, one way of reading that, I've seen multiple ways of reading that, but one way of reading that says, everything that's happened to me in this moment, if everything that has happened to me, I will have to repeat over and over and over again to the ending of infinity, whatever, like then the way that I read that is this what I want to be repeating? Is everything that I do something that I want to happen over and over again? I take it as a very radical call to a moral way of viewing yourself, saying, do I want to be this forever? And his big idea is to get to the yes, to get to the yes, to get to the yes. Actually, can I leave you guys with the Nietzsche quote? I'm going to leave you guys with this Nietzsche quote. He said, live dangerously. That actually goes back to Nietzsche. When I found that kind of late in my Nietzsche life, I've been reading him for 20 years, but I just found that a couple of years ago. Live dangerously. I'm like, was Nietzsche doing shampoo commercials? Does that not sound like just live dangerously? I mean, come on, really, seriously. So Nietzsche is at the bottom of that quote, but I just think it like belongs in Hairspray. It's like live dangerously, something like that, some sort of beauty product. So tomorrow night, 8 p.m., Prince of Queens. I'll be live in their gaytriarchy, like chamber of gaytryism. I don't know what happens when a bunch of gay guys get together and chat. And call themselves the gaytriarchy. So I don't know specifically in that. I have interacted with chatty men who like other men. I know how that goes, but I don't know how it goes when like they're calling themselves such a magnanimous name. So we'll see. You guys can join. And gay truism. True scum gaily. All right, I'm gonna kiss you. I'm gonna see you guys. Have a good night. And I pressed the button, but it's still